Hello, Amit.
Andrew, how are you? Good afternoon.
Good, how are you?
Very good, thank you.
Excellent. I've just discovered that I have a rather squeaky chair here in our conference room. So I'm hoping that, yeah, you can't hear that squeaking in the background. It's not a mouse, it's actually the chair. So
brilliant. And I've got a little bit of background envy there. Nice. It's nice in our office. We sometimes forget, don't we?
Well, we don't ever look out that way, right?
No.
We don't ever get to look out. We're too busy looking this way. So, yeah, it's it could be anywhere actually. Although it is Dubai this week, it could be anywhere. So, yeah, nice drop. How's your week been?
Yeah, very good, very good. Good afternoon, everyone. So we'll just wait a couple of minutes because I think there's a lot of people dropping in right now, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, very good. How's your week been?
Yeah, busy. It's I think. July was a bit of an anomaly. August seems to be a bit busier, and for those of you kind of in this region, there's a road near our office that's notoriously busy. And for the first time since COVID, I got caught on Hesse Street today. So
that's a good sign.
I should take that as a good sign. So,
no, that is a good sign.
More people on the road. To see one and only time I'll say that I'm happy to be in a traffic jam.
Yeah.
So yeah, a bit busy, which is yeah, positive. I think more people out there.
Traffic's definitely a good sign in Dubai. I mean, I think we remember kind of 09 and 10, where suddenly 20% of the cars suddenly just disappeared.
Yeah.
And by disappeared, we mean left at the airport, allegedly. So, but yeah,
gone home.
But it was bizarre. I mean, literally overnight there was nobody on the roads.
That's right.
All right, yeah. Awesome. So I think we should crack on. So
yeah, there's still a few people coming in, but we might as well crack on.
Yeah, perfect. So what are we talking about this week, Andrew?
Well, I think it's quite possibly one of the most important shows that we've done, I'd say. I think that obviously I know you're super excited about every show because you say that, but so I'm super excited and buzzed about this week's episode, because basically what we're going to be running through is this phenomenal survival guide that you put together that we released I think 3 days ago now, right? So Saturday, I think it was hot off the press Saturday, and obviously it's been put out there. And I think obviously you and I discussed originally it was going to go out and kind of self-populate, but we felt like it was just too important not to effectively dedicate a show to it. So we obviously get a lot of people watching live, so thank you for continuing to watch live, but we do have other people kind of in the States and over in Europe, so we get a lot of people watching afterwards as well. And I think this will be a nice kind of rundown or highlight effectively of this ebook.
Yeah, and I think the key point, I think you kind of touched on it there, is obviously we're based out of Dubai, but we obviously have business operations in the States and in the UK, and I think with the stimulus changes that are going on both in the UK and the US right now, there's going to be a lot of people who perhaps haven't had quite as much kind of financial pain with their businesses. Obviously I think everyone's been impacted. We're not saying they haven't, but I think in the US and the UK there's been quite a lot of government support, which has maybe not so much been the case over here. We can kind of touch on that later, but and I think from that perspective, with this support and stimulus now ending, I feel as if there's going to be a lot of companies now who are almost going to have to kind of relive the start of COVID again, almost, right? Where you've got this disease, this sort of pandemic that's out there. It's impacting businesses, but now all of a sudden, without government support and sort of stimulus helping their businesses, I think people are going to need maybe additional support. So yeah, I think the timing of this helps, and I think hopefully if we can sort of help at least one business out there from our viewers, I think that'll be a successful show.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, good. Yeah, that's you're right. And like I said, I mean, I think this if you haven't downloaded the kind of survival guide, please do. So it's pretty much published all over our site, and obviously we've been sharing it across our LinkedIn profiles over the last few days. Actively encourage you to download, and perhaps if it's not relevant to you, please share in your community. Because, like as Amit said, it's quite vast as far as it's effectively our blueprint to being here today. So I think, without sounding too dramatic, if some of these, or if not all of them, were not implemented properly from an Nectar perspective, this show would be a very different show. It might be me looking even more unkept, sitting here in a wife beater and some pants, and then you sitting there somewhere. So so it's good. It's good that we can share this knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, I mean, like Andrew said, it's on our site. If you kind of even want to maybe reference it as we go along, I think it's harder to miss than find. On our site, I think you'll have pop-ups sort of smacking you in the face when you're on our website. It's so apologies for that, but you can download it easily from there. But cool, Andrew. I think let's so let's start. I think should we? I mean, guys, what our objective is today is to really kind of talk about our experiences, what we've done to help us and our business, as well as what we've done to help others. And I think, and so what we're going to be doing is talking very sort of frankly, very openly. If you have any questions or anything that you want to kind of ask or share during the show, as per normal, kind of, use the Q&A button at the bottom of your page, or the chat if you fancy that. But shall we kind of go back to almost like beginning of March, Andrew, when we realized that actually something was up? I mean, it was, it feels like such a long time ago.
Yeah, it's crazy, right?
But really isn't, if in the general kind of scheme of things. But I feel as it was, we got to this point, possibly second week of March, where suddenly just things started happening around us, right? I believe you were, I was about to jump on a flight to Kuwait. I think you were about to jump on a flight to Saudi. Was it?
Yeah. It was. I was speaking at a conference in Saudi. Yeah.
Right, and I think we both sort of had conversations saying, well, do we want to go? Do we not want to go?
Yeah.
Do we carry on with these trips? Flights were booked, hotels were booked,
Exactly,
meetings were obviously, whatever we were doing there was all confirmed. And I think it was in the space of really 24, 48 hours where everything sort of changed, right? So I got a message from Kuwait having sort of asked the questions many times of, is it wise for us to continue, with this meeting? And they were like, yes, absolutely, very important. And then literally a few hours later, it was an email saying, look, actually, perhaps not. Things have got pretty bad here very quickly. And I think the same happened with you for Saudi as well, I guess, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, it was the event organizers themselves. And then also we've obviously got clients in Saudi. So, speaking to them almost on an hourly basis at that point, trying to understand what was best. Look, I'll be honest. I mean, as much as I love Saudi, I wouldn't be overly keen being locked in there for 100 days, which is pretty much anyone that kind of was there for the lockdown. So I think that, and I think at that time, even looking back at it now, and obviously us discussing the lead up to the show, there was things changing almost from morning to afternoon.
Right.
I know even us, as the partners of Nectar, we were sitting down in the morning, and then like 11 o'clock, we were having another meeting, and then 1 o'clock, it was very much an open dialogue, right?
Yeah, and I think at that point you called it kind of our war room meetings, right? Where
I did, yeah.
Where it was, I think it started with sort of 8 o'clock or 8:30 in the morning meetings, and then by 12 o'clock, another client had postponed a contract or cancelled a contract.
Yeah.
And we were like, okay, we need to have a meeting. And then by 3 o'clock, there was maybe another one. And I think it was that horrendous week where I'd say virtually half of our kind of retained clients, I guess, were having to pause contracts. So exactly. It was obviously huge. I mean, it was. I think the way I kind of described it a few weeks later is we just went back 6 years, like in the space of a week. I mean, it was nuts.
Exactly.
Both in terms of kind of the financial aspects of the business and all this. And so it's very, very kind of scary, very, very real and very dynamic, I guess. So, so I guess that's one of the first things that we did is we just made sure that we we're fully engaged, right? I mean, we
did something about it.
Yeah, so we kind of sat, we went through, like I said, these meetings were very productive. They were very much designed to, okay, um, I think they were very much by nature, what do we do, right?
Yes.
As opposed to, you know, discussing what's happened. It was more very much, you know, what do we need to
What
do
next?
now? What, you know, at that point, everyone was in our office. So we didn't have, you know, there was none of this kind of remote working at that time.
Right.
And I think we even debated whether, you know, if everyone else worked from home, whether we wanted to, because we felt as if these, you know, 3-4 times a day meetings were really sort of critical at that point, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Vital. I mean, it was, you know, we went from not barely speaking to each other, but we're all very busy individuals. And I think obviously as much as you'd like to interact and engage on a daily basis, there was periods of, you know, a few days that we didn't perhaps, you know, grab more than 5 minutes,
Yeah.
you know, or have a dedicated conversation about a particular issue, problem, or obviously idea or thought. So, I mean, it went from that to seeing each other continually, pulling each other in and kind of having conversations, like you said, 3 or 4 times a day. So then very quickly to, well, okay, you can't do that anymore, because, you know, businesses are not allowed to operate. You know, you need to send your staff home, you need to go home. And I think there was even a period where everyone staff-wise went home. So Nexa family was out, but we were still here, kind of coming in and kind of working through that. So, and then obviously that when that changed, yeah, it was again another change in the activity.
Yeah, and it was, again, we're talking about days between all these things happening. So I think 3 or 4 days later, I think we
Yeah,
were all in that position again where actually we all needed to work from home. Um, so I think let's talk a little bit more about what actually happened. I think I mean, some of the steps that we took. Um, you know, I think the remote kind of working side of it, I don't think we need to go into that in any detail because everyone's been doing it for
yeah,
the best part of, you know, 4 or 5 months now.
yeah,
You know, that was, you know, from our perspective, that wasn't too difficult. It was
right,
easier and more seamless than I thought it would be, which was great. So we didn't have to really focus on that. But I think we did do some important things, which was have a, you know, always on camera policy, because we felt that that was going to be critical to, you know, to maintain a communication. We've got a
yeah,
busy office. There's a lot of people in our office. It's lively. And we felt the only way to replicate that was going to be through just making sure people could see each other still, right?
yeah, exactly.
Um, you know, so we did a whole load of things like that. We did some activities and all the kind of things I think that, you know, I think we've written about, we've spoken about.
Yeah,
You know, there's things that we did which kind of helped to keep the morale, um, you know, high as well from a kind of, again, next to family perspective, because, you know, we're fortunate in the sense of we've got our families here, but there's a lot of people in our team who live alone,
yes,
right? And from, you know, having social lives and things like that to suddenly being locked in an apartment and not allowed out, we felt was going to be really difficult for them. You know, so again, we made sure that we had, you know, some team socials, and even during the work week, we were doing, you know, quizzes and
yeah,
things like that. But, you know, Thursday night drinks, I think was pretty cool for a while. Again, just for those guys who were, you know, sitting in an apartment on their own.
yeah, yeah.
And we
I mean,
sent
they were
some,
going on until it got a bit too hot here.
yeah, pretty much, yeah. And then having a beverage on the terrace became not so much fun.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
More of a
yeah, and
challenge.
then yeah, so I think there was, you know, a lot of that kind of team building, morale building. I think that was really important from a team meeting perspective. I think that's important to share. So what we did is we would always try and have weekly team meetings. Sometimes just weren't practical if we were so busy and we had a lot of meetings and, you know, client stuff going on. But actually we doubled down or trebled down in some respects, because that turned into almost religiously Sunday morning and Thursday morning team
Yeah,
meetings, which again, that really kind of helped to make sure that team morale and essentially, look, we're nothing without our team, right?
exactly.
And so we had to make sure that we were in full communication with the team, irrespective of their position. We were fully, I guess, transparent in the situation with our team. So, you know, we share all our numbers, you know, the whole situation everyone's fully aware of. But just to see everyone's faces, I mean, for me, it was definitely a highlight of the week where I would see people, you know, and it's nice to see
Exactly.
people. Nice to hear what they've been up to and things like that. So we did some cool things. We're still doing some cool things, you know, the Zoom roulette, you know, it's kind of, we tried it one week and that was quite cool. So people pick a number and based on the position on their screen, that number pops up and, you know, they've got to tell us their highlight of the week and stuff. Fun stuff. I mean, it's just been nice to kind of hear from people who typically wouldn't hear from.
So that was, we've obviously got some
cool.
we've got some very vocal individuals in the team. Don't know who they are. And then there's some people that perhaps aren't as vocal. So it's nice to see and hear from everyone on that touch point. And I think the thing is, you know, that still remained. So this Sunday just gone, obviously we had a meeting. We've got a team meeting on Thursday. You know, we haven't. That's been working successfully. So you know, why change it, right? And I think it doesn't matter what happens in the next 3, 6, 9 months. That will still kind of be in place. And obviously now, with a few more individuals kind of coming in remotely through remote hires, it's a nice way for them to be introduced to the organization as well. So they get to see people, they get to, you know, put a name behind the face of, you know, Slack or email, and they get to see that person as well. And hear that person's whatever that was, person's voice as well.
Yeah. And I think that's an important point. I think while we're kind of talking about sort of employees and the team, so we've continued to sort of hire during this time. But obviously what this whole scenario has taught us is that, you know, people don't need to be located in Dubai or anywhere near our other offices for that matter. So obviously what we've been doing is hiring remote. We've got a lot of our support team, or you know, not a lot of our support, but all of our new support team essentially are located outside of the cities we operate in, which has been brilliant because we're just, you know, again, it's new faces. It's a very kind of diverse team as it is. But now what we're seeing is kind of, again, new, fresh ideas. And we've hired people from pretty much 2 or 3 different continents, right, during this time, which is for me been really exciting. Challenges with that, and again, guys, we're going to move on to actual, you know, some of the other business challenges, but from a hiring challenge, from a, you know, when you're hiring remotely, things like onboarding really needs to be considered. So we've got a superstar on our team, which is Samara. And, you know, straight away I said, look, if we are going to hire remotely, we've got to make sure that our remote onboarding is just as good, if not better than what our in-person onboarding is. And Samara, you know, worked out exactly how that was going to happen, a lot of kind of Zoom follow-ups and really kind of making sure that, you know, onboarding buddies were created so that you've got different people in the organization who are kind of helping new people settle in, even if they're located, you know, 10 hours away, right? It doesn't matter. And so that really worked quite well. We've onboarded salespeople since then. Andrew, do you want to talk about that? Because I think that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, we've got new salespeople that have joined us, and as part of that onboarding process, obviously they're remote, so we're able to kind of pull them in and onboard them. But it's not always practical to spend the time that we would traditionally spend the time as far as training and building that out. So we've actually built out kind of an LMS, learning management system, that is, you know, videos of ourselves and the rest of the team, really kind of doing that training on video. So it's built out, it's tracked, it's essentially, you know, a really nice way to onboard people. So we found that obviously this way, immediately they can hit the ground running. Traditionally, perhaps, you know, from an onboarding perspective and sales, it's a couple of days and it's a few meetings and it's okay, I'm getting organized and it's learning products. But this way, there's a resource that you can continually go back to, rewatch videos, take notes, ask questions, and then, you know, that interactive session that you have afterwards is kind of a more informed session. Because, you know, you're basically asking the questions of the people that have created the content as well.
Yeah, and it's exactly that. It was very much designed to be low production, where we're essentially sitting in front of our laptops, and
that's right.
And what we're doing is just literally creating short 3 or 4 minute videos, just explaining each service, each product type, how we engage with clients. But yeah, I think that's been a really, really kind of successful piece, and it took all of 3 or 4 days to put together, which I also felt was pretty cool because
Yeah, and that builds, as each service we got increases, there's another opportunity. There's case studies on there running through. There's clients. There's talking about stories that people obviously sometimes it's a challenge, especially when you're selling, to understand how the next puzzle fits in the piece or the piece fits in the puzzle. So this kind of gives people real ammunition to go out to market. Day 2, day 3. Whereas ordinarily you'd be expecting a good week ramp to understand and a month to get settled in. This allows, look, the guy that's joined us, he's out there, banging the drum already within 2 days, which is fantastic.
Yeah, no, it's been awesome. So cool. Look, Sandra, I think guys, we when we talk about what we've done internally, there's been a million things, and if any of you guys want any more information about some of those kind of internal processes and what we've worked on, we can go into detail on a one-on-one call or something like that. But I think, Andrew, let's move on to now that commercial aspect. So I mentioned earlier that essentially in the space of a week, it was about half, 52% of our revenue just dropped off a cliff.
Disappeared.
And I think that presented incredible challenges, right? So, but I'm quite looking back on it now 4 months on. I'm quite proud of what we've done, and I think one of those aspects comes back to the fact that what we decided to do as a company was just to really act very kind of fast and efficiently with anything new. So the fact that we were having these minimum 1 hour, 1.5 hour daily meetings between the partners, where the 5 of us would get on a call and really just discuss everything openly. Just having that where we were making decisions very, very quickly, I think really kind of helped us. And I think what we'll touch on is, again, a lot of this was just down to, okay, we're learning this today. What do we think? Do we need to implement some change? Do we need to re-strategize? Do we need to work this out? And we'll go into some of the details there because we literally did a lot. But I think one of the kind of big changes, obviously, was the fact that we couldn't go to meetings and pitch anymore. Right? Exactly. I mean, all of that suddenly had to be done online, and I don't think it was anything that we've really kind of taken too seriously previously. And I think, what was your kind of experiences with that pitching side of it, meeting? What did you learn, Andrew? And yeah, I think I remember the first one you did, you weren't too happy with, right? But I mean, what did you learn from that so that moving forward things improved?
Yeah, I think obviously from an agency perspective, we're not traditional in the sense that we get involved in too many aggressive pitches. We tend to have discovery meetings, work things out, and then go back and build a formula and strategy for clients. But you still have to pitch it, right? You still have to come up there and pitch up the tent. So I think that immediately, first and foremost, doing it in a kind of online environment is challenging. Especially if you're a bit of an animated character like myself, and you like to move around, so I think that is one thing that I knew immediately that you can't really do. You can be animated on a call, but not anywhere close to this, because obviously it's a much smaller screen and people are focusing. The always on camera is something that I've tried to instill. So even when I'm having a meeting with somebody, even if I make a joke of it, that the camera should be on, because it's very difficult to interact and kind of understand what's happening, because from a sales perspective and a pitch perspective, it's very visually driven. There's body language, you're looking at the way they're sitting, the way they're leaning, you're kind of working out what watch they're wearing. There's a whole host of little triggers that over the years you've just kind of naturally taken as part of that process, right? And when that's taken away from you, it's a challenge, right? So when you can't see the person, you can't see anything, how they look or what they're wearing or even where they are. This is a challenge. And also, I mean, things like, where is your office? Kind of understanding, okay, what office tower you work at, how much that office is, and there's a whole host of other triggers. So when all of this is taken away from you, you have to kind of reevaluate your methodology and your approach. So a lot of that goes more into more traditional methods of questions. So asking leading questions and kind of understanding. And when it comes to pitch, I think what we've been able to rely heavily on is a phenomenal kind of team creatively. So understanding that now that creative has even more of an impact, because you're obviously, you know, you're a small piece on the screen when you're showcasing this presentation or this deck. So yeah, it was very uncomfortable. The first pitch I did happened to be probably one of the largest hotel groups in the region, to 15, 16 people. Not one of them had a camera on. You know, and Ravi and the partners was on the call with me, and I got off, and he was like, "How was that?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm not sure." But I think over time, you know, now I actually find this more natural. So you know, now I'm actively encouraging people to jump on a Zoom call. Even now we're open, we're seeing people. I've had a meeting today, for example, but that individual I met today, I have had 5 Zoom calls with him. So this is the first time I'm meeting. So I think that, you know, for me, what I would say, some of the positives on the back of this is that Zoom meetings tend to be more structured because people want to get down to business. So there's still that patter and back and forth and how are you, how's the family? But there's more of a sense of urgency to crack on, right? So I don't feel like I've had a wasted Zoom meeting, if that makes sense. Where in the past, there's been many a time where I've jumped in a car, driven for 35 minutes, had a meeting for 10 minutes, and then jumped back. And then, so I feel like there's definitely an advantage to this now that wasn't there initially, even to the point of, you know, just us as partners. So, you know, that I remember sitting around and saying, look, we've got to try and meet up with each other as much as we can, because how do we operate? How do we continually, not just there? But I think we quickly got over that and realized that actually it's not about, you know, even the distance, it's about consistency. So if you're consistently, you know, have an agenda, you consistently have a time, just building that in is crucial to the success.
Okay. And from a commercial perspective, Andrew, do you want to share what we did? Because I think what we realized very quickly is not having that ability to, you know, share proposals and run through proposals, you know, on the first-hand basis. I think that was a challenge. So we also looked at, you know, we looked at actually how we proposed, you know, our process for proposing. And I think that's an important point as well, right? I mean,
so we did, first and foremost, we kind of looked at what we had to offer and how we were offering it. And then, you know, taking away that facility to meet with somebody and perhaps discuss the proposal openly with them, or discuss a pitch openly with them, we started to implement a few things. So first of all, we looked at all the proposals and said, well, okay, hold on a minute, we need to refresh these. We need to, you know, make them more kind of visually led, right? So instead of kind of lots of bullets and lots of text, we transform that into a visually led process. So there's a lot more visual aspects to the proposal. So if we were to go through them, then we also started using video. So moving away from emails to videos, sending people a video email, as it were, and explaining it to the point where also using video in screen to describe the proposal. So, you know, the fact is that obviously when you do meet someone, you may talk to them and bounce around, and then you may meet them for a follow-up of the proposal. That just doesn't happen on the online space. So a lot of the proposals now we send out, we have a walkthrough. 2-minute walkthrough, this is this, this is this, this is what we discussed, this is why we're recommending this. And we've seen a great uptake in that. And interestingly, again, this is all trackable. So this has allowed us to determine who's serious as well. So if you've spent the time and effort building out a proposal, you sent a nice video message. If somebody opens the email, doesn't watch the video, doesn't watch, you know, open the proposal, which we're tracking, you can start to allocate your time and resource better and more effectively. So, you know, we've definitely changed the way that we've done the business from a pitch and proposal perspective, and that has helped us out. But even things like the meeting links, so sending people meeting links for Zoom calls, I almost felt, I don't know, prior to COVID, it felt a bit impersonal, but now it just feels practical. So, you know, that's probably, you know, integrated with Zoom straight away. You send one person an invitation and then you can meet them straight away. That's definitely, again, allowed I think the organization to allocate your time more effectively, to kind of meet individuals and give them on their own time zone. So instead of back and forth, which you may have done before, now you're obviously sending them a link.
Yeah, Andrew, one of the things we spoke about in the book is in the ebook is price wars, right? So,
Yeah.
and I think one of the, we kind of look at, we look at what's kind of going on, and obviously, people like ourselves were kind of struggling. They've lost a lot of business. They have to obviously try and recoup that in form of new business. So I think one of the things that we kind of predicted very early on, and it doesn't make us anywhere near as intelligent as that sounds, but we just knew that price was going to come under pressure, right?
Yeah.
So we just knew that, right, this is going to be a potential challenge, because if suddenly now we're faced in a price war, we've got 400 competitors or so. Something, I read something the other day that there's 400 agencies like ours, for example, in a relatively small city. Now, the second people start competing on price, I mean, you can literally, it's just a game that we just don't want to play, right? Yeah. And so what was your kind of approach to that?
Just double our price on everything. So anything that was before, 100% on top.
Yeah.
No. I think the thing is that what I would say is that very early on, the discussion was around longevity and the fact that we'd get through this. So I think that with that as the target, and we're going to get through this, we have to be conscious about the type of business that we pull on board, during this time. So, I think I wrote something about value perception or a few weeks ago, but it's a very dangerous thing. And as soon as you start to, slash pricing, devalue what you offer, you tend to attract, perhaps the wrong fit clients. And then what happens is, obviously, when you come out the other side of obviously a difficult situation, you're then effectively saddled with clients that may not necessarily be the right fit for your organization. So I think with that in mind, as far as the kind of thought that we're going to get through this and we're going to continue, so we need to be thinking about what we're bringing on board. We were still very selective. We didn't move on pricing in some areas. We added more value to the service offering, I'd say. And in that case, some of our pricing increased, where we were offering a different type of value to that particular service offering. So I think that that has helped us as well, because I think there's a confidence associated to that. We're confident in our pricing. We're confident in the offering that we have and how we're helping organizations. So I think that was important.
Yeah, look, I think it really helps us that we were here, 09 again, to refer back to that.
Exactly.
We've seen this before.
Exactly.
And I think, I was very kind of adamant. I know we had, a few meetings where you guys were looking at me as if, I was talking crazy. But discounting and things like that just wasn't something that I wanted us to do, because, and you said it right, you end up with clients that just aren't a good fit, or perhaps are a good fit, but you're basically losing money on the value, in terms of a service and time that's being spent on that client in comparison to what they're paying. So, I think that's one of the things from an advice perspective, and I've shared that with many of our clients, for example, when they said, look, what do we do? Price is under pressure. We need sales. And I said, look, hold firm. I was like, you've got to hold firm. You've got to, if your entire proposition is as strong as it should be, irrespective of how competitive your industry is or not, hold firm in your pricing and don't sort of discount. I've just noticed, actually, our queen of discounting, Shams, is watching us today. So yeah, amazing. Shams was one exception to that rule, so I'm going to give her a special shout out today. But essentially, I mean, that was the key, right? It was a case of standing firm and saying, look, this is our price, but what you're going to get is, a company that knows what they're doing. And what I also felt, and I think this is a really important point, is companies at this time don't also want to take risk. Okay. Exactly. And I always feel as if, if I'm buying a product or a service and I tell someone, look, I want a 20-25% discount on what I've been quoted, And if they agree to that, what am I really getting, right? I don't want to take a risk. I don't want shortcuts. Look, at this moment in time, I've got less money to potentially spend on this product or service than I've ever had. I've got to make sure it works, right? So if I am getting a company who's very willing to kind of, say, hey, here's a highly discounted, product or service, I kind of will almost go the other way and say, okay, well, who is that company that isn't going to give me that? Because what I don't want, if they can give me a 25% discount, that means they're going to potentially take shortcuts on my work, right? And I do,
I think, no, go on.
No, and it does, and that would just make me nervous as a purchaser, I guess is what I was trying to say.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important as well, though, to say that we've maintained that line throughout our business operation. So this isn't something that magically we said, okay, this is what we're going to do. We've never had a soup mentality. So there's never been this, environment which is prevalent in this region, especially where it's like, this is a price. Well, okay, what's your last price, right? So we've never engaged in that kind of behavior anyway. So I think to even remotely consider it would be dangerous anyway, because actually we're just not used to playing in that space. And kind of other organizations that are used to playing in that space, sell that way, and obviously we're probably more successful at it. So yeah, I think obviously now look, we can say this with confidence now because we're sitting here as well, fully clothed, clean shave, all that kind of stuff. But yeah, so I think it's worked.
Yeah, and look, and I think so. I think that's obviously a kind of key point. I think something else, one of the other challenges I feel we faced, and I'll go back to that point where, those early days when sort of COVID hit, and we had these clients, and these are, long-standing clients of us who suddenly, had to pause contracts with us. I think one of the things that we did at that point was really important, and it wasn't that we just kind of turned our backs on these clients. I think we've never been that kind of company anyway. But what we did do, which actually we seem to be getting the thanks for now, is rather than just drop a WhatsApp or send an email saying, look, don't worry, we understand. If you need anything, let us know. One of the things that we did, and I'm very glad we did it, is we actually wrote letters to the senior management of all of our major clients who we knew were in pain. Right, and we're talking about cinema groups, we're talking about large hotel chains, people whose businesses were essentially decimated overnight. And what we did is we actually wrote to each one of those personally, and said to them, look, we understand the situation we're in, but we're not going to turn our backs on you. We're going to help you. If you do need anything during this time, this isn't going to be a financial conversation. It's going to be a what do you need conversation. And obviously within reason, we wanted to kind of support everyone. And it's funny, it was only, I'd say the last couple of weeks, or maybe the last month or so, where
when people started opening up.
Yeah, and they said actually, I had one client who said, we were just in a real state of despair, and then we suddenly got your letter through, and me and the CEO just looked at each other and said, okay, that's a partner we want to work with. And that's it. And they've just been adamant that they've been helping, and we've had emails back from, again, directors and CEOs of other companies who've just again said the same thing and saying that it was highly appreciated. So again, I think that personal touch, I think really did matter, and we did obviously back that up by kind of helping and supporting. And I think that really helped us. And I think one of the things, again, in the ebook that we talk about is the flywheel.
Yeah.
And we've spoken about this before. And it's that kind of HubSpot flywheel where, in order for a business to grow, you've got to make sure that your sales and your service and your marketing is all fully aligned. And I think that was that element where we said, okay, from a service perspective, if we've got any chance of surviving, it's going to be down to really looking after every client, but also looking after the clients that weren't necessarily going to be paying us for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
And I think it was really kind of like, okay, look, we've got that in place now. I think it was about 10 days into COVID when it hit, where we suddenly said, okay, look, we've now got to a point, we've had 2 days when nobody's cancelled. This is good, right? Hopefully we've hit the bottom now. But essentially that was really, I think, what sort of kick-started it. And then from that perspective, we started looking at all the different aspects of the flywheel. So we've spoken about what we did from a sales perspective, which was relook at our entire sales process with proposals, the videos, what Andrew spoke about. I think that was really key. So we had two elements of the flywheel which are functioning pretty well, and the last piece was marketing, I guess, right? Where we had a slight problem because we, stopped spending money on marketing. But again, I mean, do you want to talk about what we did there? Because I think that's been sort of pivotal for us in the last few months.
And I kind of want to, before we get into that, I want to explain that, as much as obviously, we've been encouraging a lot of new business to invest and obviously spend money on advertising to generate business, mainly because a lot of the organizations that we've engaged with over the last 3-4 months have never done any form of digital advertising before. These are larger multinational companies that have relied on things like events, conferences, traditional partners, and a lot of their partners are not set up to generate business, in a digital sense. So I think the thing is, we obviously switched off our kind of activity from a digital spend perspective because we had somewhat of a kind of plan B, as it were. And that plan B wasn't something that happened overnight. It was something that happened, 7 years ago when we first started working with HubSpot and started building content and actually generating content on the back of our services. So, what we did is we doubled down on content, but then also we probably increased our vocal awareness by about 1,000%. So we've probably been guilty of an organization in the past of head down, crack on with it, let's just do some work. We've never really shout about Nexa, as crazy as that sounds, right? So, we, to the point where, now is people saying, where have you guys come from? Like, I mean, what's going on? You're kind of everywhere, right? And essentially we were just so focused on, from a client perspective, that a lot of that energy and effort went to market their activity as opposed to ours. So what we did is we looked at, what we were doing, which was pretty much nothing. And then we activated, various aspects of that. So one, first and foremost, was right from a social perspective. Let's jump on our social. Let's start creating some, incredible content that we usually create and exclusively look at for clients. Let's do it for ourselves. So let's treat Nexa as a client from a marketing perspective. So that meant, firing up the socials, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. That meant aggressively going after LinkedIn because LinkedIn still has the highest organic reach. So that meant, each person in the organization being more active and the organization being active as Nexa on LinkedIn as well. And then obviously it was about producing content. So we've got kind of dedicated full-time writers now that are writing blogs. I think we're producing four or five a day, I think, at the moment, right, Emmett? Something close to that. Again, all helpful based content. So not nothing hidden. You want to build out, a successful Instagram advertising program. This is what you need to do, right? You want to fire up a decent LinkedIn profile. This is what you need to do. So practical advice that can help people. And that's really been the stable of what we offer. So essentially it was about publicly and very loudly shouting about Nexa and how we could potentially help you, but more in an informative and advisory capacity, not in a sales capacity. So in all honesty, we started this show, Amit, on the back of, we fancy doing a show to help people. Let's keep it a show. Let's sometimes have guests. Let's sometimes bounce through different ideas. But there was never anything salesy on the back of it. You want to reach out to us? Reach out to us. Fantastic. I mean, we did a webinar last week with Creative Zone, and on the back of that, a few people reached out to me. I've jumped on this week, had a discovery Zoom call, and that's it. Just, hey, listen, I want to bounce around some ideas. Cool, great. Yeah. That was it. So I think it was kind of twofold, right? So for the first time ever, actively looking at ourselves as if we were a client, and then marketing ourselves, right, and getting it out there.
Yeah, and I think the backbone to all of that was just content, because I think we spoke about this a couple of weeks back in the LinkedIn show. And I think what triggered this is Andrew started to generate a lot of sort of content on LinkedIn. He was, a lot of videos, and he was getting some ridiculous engagement. And I kind of looked at it and said, he's sharing other people's content here. He needs to share our content. So literally, I was just annoyed. so I basically said, right, I'm going to create content that Andrew can share, which is, Nexa content, which is on our website, and he's getting this great engagement. Let's kind of let's see what happens with this engagement if it comes back onto our site, and that's where it kind of started. And the team obviously contributed in terms of creating content. What we've done, I mean, just to give you guys a heads up, is we've now hired multiple content writers from Nexa and our clients during this whole process, because we've always known that the content that we've had on our website is essentially a magnet for quality traffic. We generate leads for fun almost, but there's a whole process behind that, and it's all centered around content. And what's happened is, I think COVID has really opened our eyes to the power of it, because when we stop spending money on any form of advertising, bearing in mind we're at a lot of events, we do a lot of things like that, but all of a sudden that stops. We just basically put that money into creating more content. And like Andrew said, I think last month we published about 85 new articles, but again, all original content, all helpful content. And our website traffic in the last 3 months has nearly trebled, and I think that's the impact of this stuff. So, again, if we throw back into sort of advice for others, you don't need a fancy website. You don't need, fancy, production equipment, any of that kind of stuff. I think as long as you're genuine, as long as you're trying to help people, and the platforms to share this content are there, right? So from a LinkedIn perspective and other platforms, once you have content, be kind of confident enough to go and share that content. Make sure you get out there, add your own kind of thoughts and opinions to it. So in the early days of COVID, it was me writing the content, then the team started to contribute as well, which was really good, because it just meant that more content was being created. But what we did is we kind of trained everyone, said, look, when you're sharing content, add your own piece, add your own kind of thoughts to this content.
Yeah, exactly.
So get your own personalities to sort of come out in this, and so honestly, like I said, don't need a fancy website. As long as you've got the ability to add a blog or some articles onto your website, do that. And if not, if you don't know how to get started with that kind of content, or where to get started with articles, well, funny enough, that's one of the articles we've written, is how to get started. Just remembered as I was saying that, but we've got an article on that. But the point is, that's what it is. It's like, okay, look, we know people don't know where to get started.
That's right.
I've seen some of the questions come in, and but actually it's not difficult to get started. I think the hardest part of getting started is getting started, right? Because once you do, just go for it and try something, and as long as you do it with the right kind of mindset, I think it works.
Well, I mean,
give yourself a chance of success.
The consistency element is a big thing, and it's actually probably what we're going to touch upon in next week's show, when we've got old Professor James Pikeway who's going to be joining us next week for next week's show. But he is a content machine, and he has been for the last, he was podcasting the radio show that he was producing 10, 11, 12 years ago, even before ARN were producing podcasts. And it was only a conversation with one of the morning producers that he was getting more people downloading the podcast than people were listening to the breakfast show. So it was kind of, he's a big believer in that consistency. And look, we've seen it firsthand, because there's times, when I've dipped in and out of LinkedIn, just sheer kind of weight of work or whatever, and you do see a drop. You need to consistently kind of put that out there. And obviously now there's a whole raft of content that's going out, and hopefully you guys see some of that. Obviously, I think you're here. Look, for example, this show itself is not something that we spent a dime on. It's organic, it's out there, it's across our channels, across YouTube and social, etc. But it's something that, again, is we've done because we know and realize very early on that it's something that we've got to start and never finish, if that makes sense. Right? it's, I think we're this 14th week in. You know, we love it, we enjoy it, and just like those, you know, meetings, top and tail of the month, just like now, every one of my first meetings is Zoom. All of these things that I think have, you know, have benefited us as an organisation, we just need to continue to do. So
No,
it's
and I
not
think that's
going back to old ways, right? Or getting
no,
comfortable and then, you know, moving back.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think and I think that's probably, you know, we've got maybe 10 minutes left, but I think just from that perspective, you know, we've the new normal and all of these different sort of cliches, and I think the reality is that things are now very different. I can't ever imagine our entire team being in our office at the same time, you know, which kind of makes me sad in some respects, because that used to give me kind of immense amounts of joy seeing everyone. But actually, is it practical? Does it make sense for people to maybe spend 45 minutes to an hour traveling each way into work? Maybe not. You know, will they have, you know, a better quality of life if they don't do that? Perhaps. Are they spending more time with their family? Yes. I mean, there's so many advantages to what business I think looks like now, that I think we've got to embrace that. And I think we are doing it. And I think, you know, you mentioned a couple of things there in terms of like, yeah, first meeting now is Zoom. Yeah, face to face and you know, personal interaction is great. You know, it's always nice to see people, but you know, time and efficiencies and all of those things are really kind of important. And I think what COVID has taught us is it's taught us how to be very efficient with our time. You know, even today I've got 8 meetings aside from this webinar, right? The show today. It just wouldn't be possible 5 months ago, right? I mean, I'd maybe be able to have one meeting before and one meeting after, but that would be it. Whereas now I'm being able to squeeze in more time for meetings are maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Great. You know, you don't feel obliged because you spent an hour traveling to see somebody that, you know, you need to spend an hour with them. I mean, you know, that kind of craziness, like, okay, let's have you know, you have a coffee, even though it's really about 5 minutes worth of conversation you're going to have. I mean, you know, it's just those things that we've I guess eliminated, but they're so important for not just our business, but I think every business kind of moving forward. And obviously that impacts retailers and businesses like that in a very different way. But, you know, I think if your business is one of those businesses that you can reshape it, you know, and if there's certain things, you know, I'm very conscious of some of those old habits kind of creeping back in, because I just don't want it to go back to what it was. I really don't. You know, I've seen almost like the other side, and I quite like it.
No, I think, you know, I was with somebody yesterday and they said, oh, you know, I like the fact that the pop in, and you can pop in, but you can still pop in online. You know, I mean, I think I'll occasionally call the team now on mobile, or you or some of the guys, but actually a lot of the time it's jump on a Zoom. Yeah. So I think the thing is, it's just about habits, right? If you get into a habit to kind of use this medium how it's supposed to be used, then it's relatively straightforward. And at the end of the day, it's just habit forming. I mean, I joked with someone the other day where I was like, because they were having trouble with Teams and they're having trouble with Zoom, and I said, should I just call you? Should we just go old school, you know, and call each other? And I almost feel like meeting people in person may turn into old school as well. Yeah. You know, where it's kind of more of you know, what do you want to meet about, essentially. I mean, obviously there's practical situations. So if you're working with clients and they have a physical presence or physical space that they want you to realize and showcase, understandably. But as you said, you know, for the sake of a coffee, it's very, very different. You know, I think we should probably, one of the things I thought about with this, though, Amit, is that we're very fortunate. We love what we do. There are some people who the highlight of their day is having that coffee with that external office or external company, you know, that gets them out of the office for an hour or gets them away from their desk for an hour. So I guess there is, you know, there's some people that are probably suffering from that, right? Where are harping back to the days. And look, I think we'll see it, but I mean, I know in this part of the world for sure, an impact is the heat. So, you know, people, I think, are still working remotely, still, because, you come in and you can't go and have a coffee, or you can't, socialize as much because there isn't the outside space. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Andrew, what about, I think we've spoken about sort of, the impact of, I'd say, maybe some of those kind of leadership decisions and things like that. Any kind of advice for company owners, managers who are out there in terms of how they can manage their teams, not just now, maybe moving forward, but any kind of advice from that perspective?
Yeah. So, I mean, 2 words, just honesty and communication. So I think the more honest you are with your team, with your partners, the better you're going to be able to hit this head on, right? So I think honesty is first and foremost, and that's really, what I've seen across multiple organizations is a complete lack of honesty or transparency. So there's no understanding at, kind of cold face level what's happening. And I think that we've seen that with large multinational companies as well, actually, in the region and kind of globally. So I think that honesty has to be in place, and then that open communication and dialogue. So continually communicating with people, understanding that, like you said, they may be on their own, they may feel isolated, they may not have the support, and consistently communicating. So, for us now, we joke about it, but we'd go weeks without spending quality time with each other, as partners. And I think the thing is, like, it's an hour every day that's locked in. I can count on one hand the days that it hasn't happened in the last 4 months. So I think that is very important to really kind of knuckle down, be honest with each other, and really, I think, look at who can do what and what they're best at, and that goes back to that honesty play, right? And that's I think we're quite blessed with that. It's very tough for some organizations, but I think you're good at X, so go and do X. You're good at Y, go and do Y. And kind of delegate some of that responsibility to kind of pull in. So I think, yeah, those are some of the things that I'd say, from a business ownership or from a corporate environment.
Yeah. No, I got.
What do you think? I mean, we're living and breathing. We're living and breathing what you've recommended. So we're kind of.
Yeah, it's funny because, look, we're not out of this yet, right? I mean, that's a reality. We still, second wave, third waves. I mean, there's so much going on around us.
July was weird. July was very weird from a sales perspective, from a client perspective. Yeah.
And I think we're going to see that, right? We're going to see different kind of business waves as well, right? It's not just about, COVID waves.
Yeah.
People, it's hugely uncertain, and I think that's, that makes it more challenging. But I think in the same respect, I think being able to make very fast decisions. I mean, for me right now, and again, you've heard me say this a million times now, but I think speed is just critical. So whatever we do across the whole entire organization just has to be quick, right? So from fast decisions to onboarding clients quickly, to getting results for clients quickly, hiring people quickly, firing people. I mean, like, whatever it is, we're just going to be fast, and I think that's really, if I kind of again look at it the next maybe 4 to 6 months, knowing that there's an impending recession out there that's going to happen, this is the only thing that's going to get us through. And I feel as if even inside of your organizations, if you see different bottlenecks, you have to get rid of them. Right, you have to do whatever you can to get rid of those bottlenecks, because that will potentially, even if it's a very small part of your business, it's going to impact other areas of the business. And I think this is really the kind of focus now. But in all fairness, and we don't ever do this as well, but like, again, on a public forum like this, we can only do what we can do because we've got the support of our team. And I think what's been I'd say the most kind of humbling in terms of all of this is just the support we've had from our team. Like, from literally, Christy, our receptionist, our driver, Wilma, all the way through to, sort of every level and every person. Everyone's contributed to helping us to, recover, essentially, right? Yeah. And we're not far away from being, we're a million miles ahead of where we were in March. but we're not quite there. But I think because with that commitment's there from everyone, I think, you know, that accelerates that entire process, right? It's not just, you know, 5 of us as partners who are trying to achieve something. You know, we've got the support of 55 others trying to do the same. And I think that is, that's, you know, that's just been phenomenal. And again, you know, we talk about, okay, things that perhaps I've suggested or we've implemented. We can only do that because the team supports us to do so, right? And that's
yeah.
You know, so people are everything. And I think I always kind of valued that, but I think the last 4 months, for me now, our people are just absolutely everything for us. You know, like the rest of it we'll figure out, but we look after our people, and, you know, together we do things. I mean, that's I guess my final point.
Yeah, no,
including you, Andrew. I value you as well. Just
thanks. Brilliant. Wonderful. I value as well. No, look, I think, listen, mate, I think we should clean cut it there. I think that's close to the hour. I think that's, you know, there's, again, if you want to reach out to us directly, please feel free to do so. Myself and Amit, obviously, and the rest of the team, we're here. So if you want to reach out, have a chat, like we said, again, not a real chat in a coffee shop, a Zoom chat. but no, joking aside, you know, we're here to have a conversation and basically share. But please go down and download this COVID guide. You know, it's a guide to survival, simple as that. So as we said, even if you take one thing away from today's show, you know, please do that. And look, we're excited about next week's show as well. So next week's show is going to be a cracker as well. So yeah, we're excited about having James here and talking about content. That's a huge thing. I mean, content again is something that people find most challenging. So we do have solutions at Nexa, and hopefully he's going to shed some light on some solutions you may be able to do yourself. So yeah, looking forward to that.
Brilliant.
Cool. Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for watching, and hopefully see you next week. All right. Take care.
Later. Cheers.
See you, Andrew.
Bye. Yeah. Bye.